Hey guys, and welcome to season 4 of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and in this season, we get to remember and reminisce back in time with some of our guests like...
Hey, we are Entity,
and you're listening to
the Us People podcast
with Savia Rocks.
Peace, my name is Oni. I'm a producer-engineer from Queens, New York.
Hi, my name is James Green. I'm a TV presenter, sports reporter and journalist.
Hi, this is Joy Langley, and I'm the author of Navigating Stress.
Hey, this is Travis Glossop. I am a creative radio producer for Kiss FM, and you're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
We highlight the strengths of our cultures, talking about diversity and inclusion, and speaking out loud and proud about who we are.
I was never that good. I was determined. I had a love for the sport, and that always fueled me.
At 49, I was seven years post-divorce after 22 years and 3 kids of a marriage. And so I knew that I needed to figure out what was happening for me and why was this such a severe sort of crack in my identity and how I showed up in the world.
It's great. I'm glad, because I'll be honest, I didn't really work that hard at uni, so it was good to leave uni and really get on it, really because I also, as a person, I think I value productivity. A lot of people live to work. I think I am one of the work to live guys, but because my work is amazing, that's all right with me. So as a person, I go to bed happy when I've had a productive day.
We've also saved the best till last by honouring another artist and showcasing their talent as our new theme song with none other than your host, Savia Rocks, featuring in their song. So guys, enjoy, stay creative, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Let's go.
Hi, my name's Ola, and you are listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks. Her name is Savia, and she rocks.
Peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. I protect my energy and peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I'm humbled to have Ola here with me, who is a comedian, an articulation coach, a speaker, and a writer. Ola, thank you so much for coming on the Us People podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. We were laughing just before we started, and we're already laughing already. So I have a feeling that this one's going to be a good one.
It usually is. I'm a great podcast guest. I'm a fantastic podcast guest, if I may say so myself.
Hey, right. Oh, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this one. All right. He's wetting the throat with some water. Okay. So let's jump in with the questions. So,
sure, let's get into it, man.
Let's talk about where you come from, first of all.
Sure.
Your background, your family background.
Family background. My family, both my parents are from Nigeria.
Hey.
My dad came to this country, in the UK, a lot earlier on in his life and did some of his school here as well as going to university. My mother came here for university and they met. So I was born and raised here. But yeah, to Yoruba Nigerian parents.
Hey, wicked, perfect. So how did you get into comedy? Let's start with comedy first before we go into the writing and the articulation coach. Let's start with comedy. How did you get into comedy?
With comedy, it was I'd started developing a bit of a passion for it while I was at school, but it was just more like I loved watching it whenever I got my hands on it. So, back then my friend would borrow a DVD or something and lend it to me, and that's how I'd watch stand-up. It wasn't as free-flowing. And then when I got to university, I had a super fast internet connection for the first time. Those uni lines were fantastic. I was coming from a home tradition of dial-up. I think we got broadband before I left the house.
Wow.
But it was that domestic internet. It wasn't really what it is today.
Domestic internet.
Oh, I'm telling you, we're streaming right now, but this was not something we could have done on my tiny computer, or was it Time or whatever that they were selling back then. So yeah, back then when I got to uni, my mind was blown. I downloaded everything, including lots and lots of stand-up. You guys gonna say porn, didn't you? But
I didn't think you was gonna say porn. And if you were gonna say porn, I'd be like, what kind of porn you downloading? So hey,
I was downloading a lot of porn, true, but but I was downloading a lot of comedy to watch after the porn. I just don't know what it is. At that time, I really just, it was like a vibe. It was like a cigarette that you have afterwards. I loved watching stand up, and so. After a while, I was like, yeah, like I really came here to study. And, you know, I was trying to take my faith more seriously. And, you know, many times I've really tried to like push back against the porn. So I deleted all the porn, but I had all this comedy left. So I actually watched the comedy in place of the porn. And I almost became a bit obsessed with the comedy to the point where it was like, I would miss out on lectures because I want to just watch stand up. And sometimes I'd convert it to audio and put it on my iPod and listen to an hour set in the middle, like throughout a lecture. Just, I don't even know why I went there, just to feel like I went, but I'd rather listen to comedy. And so I just became obsessed with it. I was at a pretty decent university. I was at the London School of Economics. I was doing accounting and finance. I wanted to become an investment banker at the time. Yeah. But just everything in me screamed like, nah, you don't want this for the right reasons. Like, you really, there's something else you're more passionate about, and I think you should chase that passion. And so it was during my time at uni that I really switched up my whole approach and started pursuing comedy.
So how did you become active in it? So when was the first time you got on a stage for comedy and decided, yeah, we know that you love it, we know that it's your porn. So how did you actually?
I give you the wrong impression. It's not my porn. It's not that unhealthy.
Listen, I'm just saying.
But what happened was I want to say it was late 2006.
Yeah.
And my good friend, in fact, funny enough, this guy plays a role all throughout my comedy story, but he was the one that I said used to borrow DVDs. He used to, remember when Netflix used to post out the DVDs to you? So that was when he used to get the comedy DVDs and lend them to me. Oh. So he's still my good friend till today. He was at university in Birmingham. At Aston University, and he was running an event for his African Caribbean Society, and he called me about coming, like he needed performers. And when we were young, I used to rap, but I was like, bro, we don't need to go back there. We don't need to talk about that. No one even ever has to know about me rapping. Let's forget that. But I just said out of nowhere, I do comedy. Now, the thing is, I had considered it, I'd contemplated it. I had watched a lot of comedy by this point. I had become that somewhat obsessed with it. And, at the end of my first year after exams, I remember I went to the old Virgin Megastores on Oxford Street, and they had Def Comedy Jam box set on sale. So myself and my girlfriend at the time, I bought it, and we just like holed up for like 2 weeks, just eating junk food and watching this whole box set. And one thing struck me while I was watching the box set that I remember till today, which is that I was so impressed by the comedians who were on there. Yeah. Partly because there were some amazing ones, but also because there were terrible ones on there. I was like, yeah, okay, Dave Chappelle's there, Jamie Foxx is there, Chris Rock's there. But look at this guy. He made it to the DVD. I could definitely do stand-up. I was so inspired by the terrible comedians who made it to the Def Comedy Jam box set. I was like, yo, I've got to try this. So the moment he said that to me, something in my head said, this is your moment. Try it. Go for it. I said, I do comedy now. He was like, oh, really? Okay. He was just kind of, I guess, a bit skeptical, but just a bit like, all right, go for it. Why not? And I wrote my set on the way to the show. I didn't have jokes. I was saying it with so much confidence and bravado, but throwing myself into the deep end really actually paid off, because by the time I got there, I was just about to go on stage. This girl asked me, I remember it vividly, she asked me, are you funny? And I said, hell yeah, I'm funny. And literally at that moment, I'd not even considered what I was doing. I don't think it even really dawned on me till afterwards. Yeah. But I was just operating on this weird bravado that I am actually hilarious and I'm going to do really well. And it worked. I got laughs. Once the first laugh hit, second laugh hit, I just kind of felt comfortable. I felt like
you was at home.
Yeah. Like this is me. I could do this. And from there on out, I was like, I want to do this. This is me. Yeah. I definitely want to do this.
One thing I do want to ask you, since you have a Nigerian background with Nigerian parents, how do they feel about you doing comedy and not doing finance or law or a different type of career?
So, quick tip for anybody who wants to pursue something like this, while you're at university, your kids are doing something like this, and you're worried about like what your Nigerian parents might say, just don't tell them. Let me be real with you. I did not tell my mom what I was doing. I just did it. The first time my mom saw me or knew that I even properly did stand up was after I'd done it for a while and I put on my own show at university. I used my university bar area and I got cameras in and I shot my own special for my 21st birthday. And I really I was so proud of it at that time because it was like, I've been going in comedy maybe a year to 2 years and I managed to fill out a room of people that wanted to hear my stand-up. And so the first time she ever saw it was when I gave her a DVD. So she didn't see me at the beginning when I was trying stuff out that didn't work or that I was doing small rooms or that I was traveling up and down. She didn't need to know about all that. All she needed to do was see that DVD. She saw there was a room full of people laughing at what I'm saying. I'm sure she didn't get the jokes, but she was just like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Now, at this point, I think she's still thinking this is just a fun hobby. I don't think she's looking at this like it's something to be taken seriously. But I think as she's seen me, she's seen that I am serious about this. Now, every so often, she gets scared, she gets worried, and she wants me to go do something serious and keep this as a hobby and, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not free from all of those comments and judgments and so on. But what I have done, I think fairly well for somebody with Nigerian parents is that I've had a level of accountability.
Yes.
I've had a level of, if you go off and do your own thing, that's great sometimes. But what you do is you risk, sort of ruining those relationships with people that love you. But what I have done is I've taken time to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I've shown that I'm rationally thinking out what I'm doing. It's not as simple as I just doing what I want to do. I've explained to my mom, the cost benefit analysis of why I'm doing stand-up over just doing a 9 to 5. And, there was a time where, I think it was after I graduated. So this was like at the end of 2009, she sat me down and was like, we were in Nigeria. I remember this. We were in Nigeria and my sister was there as well. They sat me down and just had a talk with me about like what I'm going to do with my life. And the ultimatum or the sort of proviso that I gave her was that I'm going to give it 1 year. If nothing significant happens in my career, I'm going to come to Nigeria and do youth service. But if something does happen, I'm going to pursue this. And September of that 2010 was when an agent signed. I signed with an agent for the first time. Oh. And I was like, well, this is it. I'm a professional now. It doesn't 100% mean that, but I was like, no, this is like my marker. This was that moment that I was like, okay, now I'm signing with the contract. I'm going to HMRC to declare the money. I'm gonna be a comedian. This is the day. So yeah, I think having a plan and being able to speak to somebody about it, especially your parents, I think sometimes they'll respect that more than if you just kind of go, oh, I just want to be an entertainer, and then you just sound like you're so airy-fairy and in the clouds. Plus, my mum has seen me do other things as well. She's seen me not just... What she said to me was that she didn't want me to use it as an opportunity to not work hard in life.
Yes.
She said to me that, like, look, the level of work you would have done as an investment banker, put that into your craft.
Yes.
So she's seen me push on my comedy career. She's seen me travel and do gigs internationally. She's seen me open a comedy club with my business partner. She's seen me run my own shows. She's seen me on TV. So she's seen my hustle. She knows that I'm not just like smoking weed all day and then saying, oh, I'm a comedian as a way to, cover up a lifestyle of slacking. You
No,
see
I
what
get
I'm saying?
that. No, that makes total sense to me. Definitely. How do you mentally prepare yourself, Ola, for when you go out on stage? I know you told me a little bit about when the first time when you went out on stage, you were like, yeah, I'm funny.
I
But
was so
now,
misguided.
but
yeah,
now, how is it for you?
how is it? I mean, for me, the truth is, it's gone through stages. But where I am now, usually when I'm about to go on stage, the last thing I want to think about is being on stage.
Yeah.
I just want to like have a conversation with somebody. I just want to chill. I just want to like take my mind off of it. So I literally up until about, if I can time it well, up until about 15 seconds before I need to be on stage, I'd prefer to just be talking to somebody about something else.
I like that.
Because what I don't want to do is overthink it to the point where I can't be in the moment. I need to be able to like, you know, really be with what's happening out there. So the 15 seconds before, sometimes I'll do it then. Sometimes I would have done it before, but I make sure I pray before I go on stage. I just ask God to teach me what to say. I just like, I'm very cognizant of a sort of part of this gift that I can't understand. There's a lot I can sort of mentally process and intellectualize and say, do you know what? I wrote this joke because I was thinking about this and I wanted to accurately depict this and blah, 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 blah. But some of it is just, I can only use the word inspired. So I just go back to God and I say, look, God, teach me how to use this gift you've given me. Teach me what to say to the people. If I have these people's attention, for what reason? These people have laughed already. These people are going to continue laughing. When they see me, let them say there was something particular about this guy. There's something special about this guy. Help me to stand out. Help me to take the roof off this place. In Jesus Christ's name, I pray, amen. That's usually my prayer.
Yeah.
Something that was along those lines. And then, then after that, I'm really just listening to what's going on in the room. If there's a particular person that the MC is talking to because they're being difficult, I'm noting that in my head. If there's a group of women celebrating, you know, a hen do, I'm noting that in my head. You know, if the room is really low energy and they need to be pumped up, I'm taking that in. If they need to be calmed down, I'm just like, nah, I'm getting into the room. That's basically it.
I like it. I like that. What do you see when you look in the mirror, Ola?
Do you know what? Sometimes a very scary face. Sometimes, if I look long enough, I'm like, is this my face? I don't know what it is. If I look longer than a certain amount of time, I get scared. Like, what is that really?
Do you ever forget what you look like?
I swear I do. The thing is, I feel like I know what I look like, but then when I look longer and I look harder, like even now I'm looking at myself in the screen, like, is that really how I look though? I think the camera is doing something, maybe the lighting or something, but I feel like I'm often surprised. Yeah. I don't know why. Like I've looked at my face probably the longest now for 30 something years. It's probably the face I've seen the most in my life consistently. And yet I'm still shocked by it from time to time. But in a more figurative sense, when I look in the mirror, I see someone who is, I don't know how to put it. When I look at myself, I see a picture of somebody who is appearing as different to who they really are. I feel like when I look at myself, I'm seeing somebody who should, or in some weird sense of the word, be in a completely different life, but is in this one for some reason.
Do you feel like you've been here before?
Not quite like I've been here before, but more like I have clear, vivid, at times very vivid, almost premonitions about how my life is and who I am and so on. And then I look at myself in the mirror and it just doesn't match up. And so I sometimes have to figure out, like, am I delusional, or do I have a sense of where I'm going?
Yeah.
Or is it a case of, that essentially there is something in me that you just can't see physically? And I don't know it. It sounds very metaphysical, but the point is that I feel like my looks are deceiving. I feel like if you look at me, you could quite easily underestimate me. And I feel like I often am underestimated.
Maybe your soul is different. Maybe your soul came from somewhere. It was somewhere else, came into you. Like, it's hard to explain. It's a spiritual thing where your soul came into you and then you're like, I look like this kind of thing. Wake yourself up.
I don't know. There's times, do you know what it is? It's weird. I'll just have this, I just have this weird premonition that I'm supposed to do something like ridiculously great. Like I'm talking on a grand scale. I'm talking about like on a global scale. And then I'll look at my bank account. I'll be like, this don't look like global money. This looks like...
It's not about money, first of all. It's about your heart and how you do it.
I know this intellectually.
The money will come.
I know, but this is what I'm saying to you. Like, I know these things. Like, I know them intellectually. But when I look at myself...
And your bank account.
This is the process. And my bank account. Like my bank account, I look at, my social media presence, or I look at, a recording of myself, doing stand-up or whatever. And I'm just like, it's not clicking. Something's not right here. Like, anyone watching this is not going to get a proper picture of who I am. And it's so sad because I'm like, I can't show you. I wish I could. Every so often someone comes up to me and they're like, they really got a glimpse of something different about me. And I'm like, you can see it as well. Like, you get it. I feel like there's some people who maybe can see a bit deeper or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many times it happens to me.
Yeah.
If someone comes up to me and says, there's something about you. And that's why I pray that prayer. That's the part of the prayer that I say, Lord, they laugh. They're gonna laugh. It's not about being funny right now. Let them see something special in the fact that they're laughing right now. Let them see something unique in me. And the truth is, when I really, really, process it, I know it deep down. I don't see it, and most people don't see it. And I spend most of my time trying to like prove it, it just doesn't work. I just feel like I have to let it unfold whenever it unfolds
naturally.
Yeah, when my agent signed me, like the current agent I have now, she was like, I saw you perform and I thought, this guy's amazing, but nobody knows who he is. And I was like, exactly. This is what I feel like all the time. I feel like nobody really I don't even feel like my wife knows who I am. I feel like everyone sees me, even myself, you see me within a context, but the context is limited. So if, let's say, for example, like every so often I enter a new context and someone sees me in that context and then they go, oh, I didn't know you would excel here, or I didn't know that there was this side to you, or whatever it is. And sometimes it takes a different context to bring it out. Like recently, I started taking this filmmaking course and stuff, and just really started getting into my Spike Lee zone. And I shot a video for my sister for an event she had, and she was like, wow, this is actually amazing. This is fantastic. And I'm like, I'm trying to tell you guys, like, there's something amazing inside of me. I don't understand it. I don't know it. But put me anywhere. I'll be all right. Like, just put me on stage. I'm not prepared. I'll be all right. And it's hard to keep saying that to people when people require real results. Like, it's got to points where I've been self-employed for, most of my life. And last year I went and got a 9-to-5 job to provide stability. I got, a wife and a daughter now. And I just find the process of like trying to explain yourself to employers so ridiculous, because they're so caught up on like having minimum 3 years experience in this, or have this particular certificate and so on. I'm like, you don't realize who you've got trying to ask you for a chance to build your business. Like, you've got great talent in front of you. Put me in the right context. I will shine. I will do what's necessary.
But they judge you on paper. They judge you. The thing I don't like is that they judge you on paper.
Exactly, which is ridiculous. It's the most amazing people I've met are not the people that look best on paper. We all know this. You meet people from time to time, you're like, this person is an exceptional human being. You can't put your finger on it, but you know it, right? And it's like, that's missing from everywhere, including sometimes how I see myself. Yeah. It's like I will then start to look at myself and be like, I know something different, but what I'm seeing isn't matching up. And this is the frustration.
What do you do when you're frustrated? Oh, I wish people could see him now. He's in that thinking mode, like, I'm frustrated right now. I'm frustrated right now. What do you do when say now you're in that frustration mode, right?
Yeah.
What do you do to get yourself out of it?
You know what? I've had a wide range of solutions, varying in degrees of usefulness, healthiness, and I say overall productivity. I would say, there are some times where I just watch comedy, or I just watch, silly, funny videos Def Comedy Jam is like a real, it's the thing that made me like really want to start considering that I could possibly do stand up. There's times where like if I just sit down and watch Def Comedy Jam, oh my goodness, it's perfect for me. In fact, literally, a good friend of mine, comedian today, he suggested it today. He'd see I was getting a bit frustrated, and he was like, "All right, one of these days this week, I'm gonna come down to your house. We're just gonna sit down. We're not even gonna do any writing or anything like that. We're just gonna watch Def Comedy Jam." And I was like, "Yes, that's what I need." But literally, sometimes I just watch other shows. I watch shows about other things, especially about like crime, or I watch like real estate shows about property. I watch something that's not to do with comedy sometimes, just to like get out of my own context, just to see the world as bigger than, sometimes if you zero in on comedy so much, you can be convinced that everything that's happening in comedy is everything that's happening in the world. And that's not really true. The world's bigger than that. So sometimes I'll just go and watch something else, something that's got nothing to do with comedy. I did mention it before, and I do kind of say it jokingly at times, but it's serious as well, is that at times the outlet for frustration has been porn, and bit by bit I've realized that is actually really, really unhealthy. And so I often bring it up just because I know that it's a weird thing. It's something that's clearly pervasive in our society. Loads of people consume it but aren't fully aware of some of the effects of it. So that's why I mention it so much. And I really believe that porn is quite insidious in that way, that it seems almost harmless and just, as long as you're an adult and you're fine. But it does, things to your brain that I think more people should be aware of. But I think when I'm properly at my most reasonable and well-balanced, and I'm frustrated, I pray, and I'll speak to somebody who's going to really, how do I say it? Like speak life into my world, like remind me of what I need to be reminded of, and speak words of encouragement, and encourage me in the scripture, or just remind me of times where God has been good to me, or even just remind me that like, look, I see greatness in you and it's going to be fine. I know you're frustrated. I know it doesn't match up right now, but I can see it. Don't worry. It's going to come. Don't worry about it. And I think that those ones are the ones when I'm like praying and speaking to people who are encouraging me in that way. I think those are probably the most healthy times in terms of dealing with frustration.
So let's bring writing into this now. Because we've had the laughs, we've had you going on stage, we've had you talking about friends who support you, but let's talk about the writing element of it. So talk to me about how you write, what you write, how you feel when you're writing. Talk to me about the process of you having an idea to when you're on stage with that idea.
Okay, so like, in terms of the different things I write, they have different, means and processes. So, if we're talking about writing stand-up, for example, and I'm writing for myself, my current strategy at this point is to live as much as possible, because it's in the living that I am inspired with what I want to say. There are a few times where I will sort of discipline myself to sit down and have a writing session and to write down a bunch of ideas and work through them. And I think that's helpful as well. But I don't put too much emphasis on that, because I know that most of my best jokes have come from living and observing and letting my brain do what it does, where it looks at a situation and everyone can see what just happened, but I can see, a 5-minute bit in it, and let my brain do that process and bring it out. And sometimes it's just a matter of like, if I was to pull up my document right now, there's literally all kinds of sentences that don't make sense that I just write down because it came to my head and I know that there's something there. And I can't explain why I know there's something there. I know there's something there. Then later on, when I'm like going back through it, I'll be like, that's what I needed that line for. And I'll pull it back. Like, I've got a line here, which is literally albino at a black tie event. That is a line I've got written down. And I saw it. And it was a black tie event. Everyone's lining up outside Café de Paris.
Yeah.
And there was one albino guy in a white suit. And I was just like, this is fantastic. Do you not understand like the beauty of the irony of this situation? That he's black, but appears white. And he's at a black tie event, and everyone's wearing black, and he's the only one in white. He's actually wearing a white tux. And I just saw a beauty in it, and I was just like, write that down. Albino at a black tie event. And I feel like that writing process is the most organic and the most beautiful and most enjoyable for me, because it really then focuses me on living life rather than trying to contrive as many situations as possible. Obviously, if it got to the point where I was doing stand-up and I was expected to, meet some kind of obligation to write a certain amount every so often, I wouldn't have that luxury to write in such an organic manner. I might have to meet certain deadlines, and I can do that because that's a discipline in and of itself. But for myself, I really enjoy the process of organic, creation of material. But like I said, writing is different for different situations. So when I'm writing stand-up for myself, I like the organic process, but I also write for other people as well. So I will write jokes.
I was going to say that.
For a guy called Jason Lewis. He does an online show at the moment. We used to write together actually as far back as maybe 12 years ago. We've been there was a long time period where we didn't really do much work together, but we go back a long time. And in terms of writing with him, in that situation, there is more of a discipline to it. The way he does his show is he'll write his script on Wednesday, he'll shoot it on Thursday, he has Friday/Saturday to edit it, and then he puts it out. So for that, what that means is when he sends me the script on Wednesday, I literally have a set number of hours to punch up the script. And that to me is fantastic. I like that kind of challenge as well, because it means that you're working a different muscle in the brain. It now means can you not only can you wait for fantastic situations to come to you, but can you go out and find them? And that is great. That's another part of writing that I like. And that's the part that's really the most professional side, because most people, when they're putting something together, don't have years for you to go off and live life and experience for you to come back and write on their stuff. They need to turn something around, because that's how production works. So if you want to be in the business, you do need to have the discipline as well, and not just be like, oh, I have a process and I have a method and everyone has to work around it. That's not how life works.
That's true. No, that's really, really true. What came first, writing or comedy?
I mean, they're one and the same for me when it comes to stand-up. I've always had to write my own jokes as a stand-up comedian. So they kind of started at the same time. But in terms of stand-up came first before I ever started writing sketches or writing jokes for anybody or writing in a more professional sense. Stand-up always came first. Yeah. But I was still writing in those circumstances. I was writing for myself, though. I'm
going to bring in the articulation coach now.
Okay.
So we done the comedy. We done some of the writing. Articulation coach. Talk to me, Ola.
It was the lockdown period that actually brought it out in me. Okay. Because all of a sudden all the comedy clubs were closed, and so I had to figure out. And not only that, the job that I said that I went to go and get, the 9-to-5 job, I was made redundant because obviously COVID hit, and all kinds of situations came into it. And I was looking at it, and I was kind of going, if there's one thing this 1 year in an office has taught me, is that I have something to offer the world, outside of entertainment. I was selling payment solutions, and one thing they kept saying about me as a salesman was that I spoke very well. That was the reason I really got the job. In the interview, I really shone because I spoke well. And I started thinking, hold on a second, if we start to really break down comedy in terms of what use do I have, what can I offer the market, what can I offer people? If people don't need to go to comedy clubs right now because they're staying in to save their lives, what can I offer people? And so I said, look, I've been going 10 years, I've been speaking in public. There's somebody who needs that skill. There's somebody who can benefit from that wealth of experience. And so if everybody has to be at home, this might be a great time for people to upskill themselves, to prepare themselves for the job market, to prepare their children for the coming job market, to give their children the edge in what's going to be an increasingly competitive job market. So I've always believed that, even if you can look at your comedians or your creatives and whatnot in a sort of a sidelined mentality. Like if they're not in the corporate environment, they don't have this particular skill next to their name, their LinkedIn profile doesn't look this exact way, then they're of no use to you. But the same thing I was saying to you in terms of being able to spot greatness, I'm like, we've got soft skills, we've got life experiences, and we've got wisdom to offer the market. I think if you sit down, if you had self-employed creatives come and workshop with your employees on something as simple as performance-based drive, the fact that as a comedian or as any other creative, you have to be good at what you do in order to make money. And an employee can literally just survive on being mediocre. I would say I want that person to come and speak to my employees about the importance of finding greatness within yourself so that you can bring out the best of what you do and not just seeing it as a way to skate through. So I started asking myself, what can I offer the market? And the most obvious thing to me was helping people learn how to articulate themselves. It's not just being able to articulate myself well, but being able to understand what makes great articulation. I feel like a lot of the principles that make jokes work make articulation work.
Yes.
And that's the reason why people, when they do speeches, they like to start off with a joke, is because comedy teaches you so many powerful skills about communication. And, like a good example, and I'll just drop this for free for your listeners, is that there's a magic rule of 3 whenever you're giving examples on something, right? So we use it in jokes all the time. So the rhythm, the joke will be like, ba-ba-da-ba-da. I'm going to give you some examples now. Da-ba-da-ba-da, da-ba-da-ba-da. And da-da-da-da-da-da. And that rhythm is enough to make people laugh. Even if what you're saying in there isn't that funny, the rhythm is so good. The cadence of it is so good. There's something about that number 3, because you know that 1 is getting me ready, 2, here it comes, 3, here's the punch.
Yeah.
Ready, set, go. Like it's like an instinctive thing. So one thing I said to a client just last week was that, if she's in a situation where she needs to give some examples of something that her creative studio, she runs a creative studio, and she wanted to work out how to articulate herself better when she's in networking situations. I said, you want to narrow it down to 3 examples, if possible, when people ask you for examples of what you've been working on. So what you want to do is narrow it down to 3 examples and make sure the 3rd one is the most interesting one, the one that you want to talk about the most, and the one that's the one that you want to lead the conversation into. So especially like if I'm talking to somebody who is very big in a particular part of the world, let's say they're big in India, and I want to talk to them about, expanding into India. I'm going to say, we've been doing work in Europe, in the US, and actually we did a really large project in India. And because I know that person's going to go, India, okay, I'm actually fairly conversant with a lot of the business landscape in India. Oh, really? Okay, yeah, I was trying to expand into there. And what you've done is the Europe and USA that you mentioned earlier on was just to prop up the India.
Yes.
But understanding that power of 3 is something that I know from jokes, because you can always go straight to the punchline. And yes, if the punchline is funny, it's fine. But you can actually get a little bit extra out of it if you build it up by putting 2 sort of almost funny bits underneath it. Something as simple as that. I'm like, cool, let me bring that to the market and let me teach people. And, so far as someone finds value in it, then as far as I'm concerned, I'm still living out a life of purpose, even though, there are no comedy clubs.
Tell me about a time when you overcame an obstacle in your life that kind of made you challenge who you were as a person.
I would like to say, it's probably going to come back to porn or maybe my faith again, because I've wrestled with this quite a bit. And the wrestle was essentially with trying to figure out a worldview, trying to figure out how, what I read or see in the Bible or what I'm taught or what I observe or what I've experienced, how these things all match up. Yes. And I think overcoming it came from understanding that I wouldn't understand. And what that really means at the root of it was to not make an idol or not make a god out of my own knowledge. The thing is, like, I went to a private school, and then I went from there to LSE, and I was going to go to an investment bank, but I've been out here doing stand-up, and if someone tells you, if every step of the way you've been made to feel like you're very clever, you're very capable, the one thing that really disarms you is when you can't make sense of the world, or you can't make sense of something.
Yeah.
It becomes very disarming because you've built an entire identity around being the clever guy in the room. You've been being the academically excellent one. But the day you realize that one of the smartest things you could ever realize about yourself is that you don't know it and you can't know it, it takes a level of submission and finding peace in a vulnerability that you can't teach it. You just have to experience it. And I specifically remember the day that I just said to God, look, that's it. I'm going to stop trying to squeeze you through my filter and through my lens and make sense of you as I see the world. I am ready to be taught. And that is when you kick into a whole new level. When if you're looking at the world, you don't realize that when you're looking, the actual real information transfer is from the world into your eyes and into your brain. Whereas we see looking as something that we do. Looking is something we receive, right? So I was trying to find a worldview by projecting, not by looking and seeing. So I had to have that switch and I had to overcome, a whole way of thinking that basically said I had what it took and I could just project it on everyone else. Now I know the only reason I have the ability to do anything is because it's been gifted to me. Yeah. Now I have an understanding that, look, I'm not going to understand why I know everything that I know or why I've been through everything that I've been through or why the world is the way it is in every single way. I'm not going to understand it. And even if I try to intellectualize it, that's me projecting onto the world. I should probably spend more time receiving from the world, receiving and understanding and observing in a way that says, look, let the information come to me.
I like that.
Do you see what I'm saying? It's a whole switch.
Yeah. So you can absorb it. Yeah.
Yeah. It got me from the position of spouting to asking. I became less interested in just pushing my views out there. I'm more interested in asking questions. I'm not saying there's anything wrong in expressing yourself. Express what you think, have thoughts, have your own mind. These things, I think God gave me a brain for a reason. But what he wanted me to do was to submit it and say, basically it was almost like nothing was greater than my intellect. And the truth is God has always been greater than my intellect. So if I had to reprioritize my intellect such that I leave room for God to teach me things.
Yeah.
That was the overcoming.
Do you ever feel like you ever failed at something which taught you to be the person who you are now? Because a lot of people always talk about the success of what they've done, but people don't really ask the question of, have you ever failed at anything?
Yeah, I feel like I've failed consistently. I think I've failed consistently in terms of, in my faith. I think I've failed many times in being the husband that my wife needs me to be, or even, failed in terms of attaining a goal that I might have set myself. In my career, I definitely failed in my summer body 2020 plans. They didn't come to fruition. My summer body 2020 plans are a failure as we speak. But it's cliche now, but it is said that like the real sort of like failure is when you reach a point where I think there's no hope left. Because I feel like if let's say you're a football team and you try to win the league, there's a specific moment where we decide who won the league. So if you haven't got the most points by this time, then yes, you failed. So then I have to ask myself, like, what's the whistle blow in life? Where's the moment where it ends and everybody takes score? And the truth is, it doesn't exist. We put it there for ourselves. We say, I want to be married by this time, or I want to have this by this time. But really, life hasn't put any of these whistle blows in there. Life hasn't said you have to have this by this time. A lot of the time, anyway. The law has said you need to figure out how to, follow the rules before you're 18. That's definitely out there. The law said, you have to be able to, follow the rules of the road before you get your license. I don't want to hear anybody here saying, look, I didn't fail when I crashed into those 6 cars. I was just on a journey to understanding how to drive better. No, that one, you failed. You need to go and pass your tests, okay? But what I'm talking about is that for most of the things...
accent kicked in.
I don't want people twisting my words. That's why I'm being very clear with what I'm saying. But I think a lot of the things that I felt like I failed on, I don't have a clear defined end moment in which I have to have it all together by. There's still time to work on my marriage. There's still time to get this sexy body in place. There's still time for me to, work on my faith and grow in my faith and so on. So it's like the ones that I'm most concerned about are the ones I actually have more of a long-term approach to.
Yeah.
I need to have more of a long-term approach to.
Definitely. What are you most proud of that you stand for?
Most proud of that I stand for?
I got him thinking.
Really, you have? Because the obvious thing to say is like standing for God. But I don't know if I'm proud, because I feel like in that context, the pride would be in what I've done. And really, my pride isn't in me standing for God, because, I just told you I've been struggling with porn and not necessarily always got things right. So it's like, it's almost contradictory in many ways. I feel like in terms of what I could actually be proud of that I stand for, I think probably being principled. Okay. I think I really take pride in being principled as an individual. And, I think that's something that my wife loves and hates about me. Everyone loves a principled guy when you need them to be principled, but no one likes a principled guy when they hold you to be principled. So I am the kind of person that will be like, this is what you said and you need to stick to it. And when you want to be a bit more flaky or you want to be a bit more, loosey-goosey with the rules, I'm the friend who's going to be like, nah, that's not what we said we're doing. We're going to stick to it, because I believe in the principle of let your yes be yes and let your no be no. Even if later on it's no longer of benefit to you, if you said this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do. Those kind of principles are the kind of things I put pride in, so that at least for all my misgivings in life, there are times where you can trust, like, this was Allah or this was not Allah. If Allah said he struggled with porn, that's him being honest. If Allah said he didn't, go to that party, you don't have to go and check all the pictures and be like, I think Allah was there. No. If Allah was there, he would have told you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That kind of being principled to that level, I think, is one of those things I'm very proud of.
What is the best advice, Ola, you've ever received from someone?
Ooh, the best advice. Do you know what it is? It's like, it depends in the season. I've had so many bombshell moments, and I think each one was a bombshell because of the time that it came. So there was a time where my uncle said to me, the hardest prayer you'll ever pray is, Lord, let your will be done, not mine. And at that moment, that was like, I needed to hear that. Like, life isn't just about me getting what I want. And if I'm really ever going to have a relationship with God, I have to understand that it's more about seeing his will done than it is mine. Big mind blown moment. There's been times where people have given me revelations about marriage, like in a time where I needed to learn something about marriage, or they've given me a revelation about, I've sort of figured something out about my career at a time where I needed to figure that out. So in terms of advice, I would say there's no singular one best bit of advice. I would say there's advice for each season of your life. And depending on the season of your life, something's going to hit hard with you if you seek out the wisdom.
I like that. Definitely. What would you do differently if nobody was judging you at all?
If nobody was judging me at all?
Because we all get judged.
Of course.
And sometimes it hinders us because we stop doing things that we want to do or need to do or feel like doing. But if no one was judging you, what would you do differently in your life?
I think it's a very tied up question, because I would my initial answer is to say I'd probably live a lot more of an adventurous life. But the thing about the judgment that comes with being an adventurous person is that part of it is just the fact that, my wife doesn't want me to be that adventurous. So am I doing it to escape her judgment, or am I doing it to just escape having to be concerned about how she feels about things? That's why I say it's a bit more tied up. It's not as simple as just escaping judgment in that case. I kind of have to take into account how my wife feels about something. I can't just pretend like, my opinion is the only one that matters. So that's, I don't think there's anything I do purely because I don't want to be judged for it. There's being judged is probably one of the reasons why, but there's probably other reasons why I don't do it as well. Yeah. And so, I don't think there's anything, because if let's say I had, given up comedy and just said, do you know what, I'm just going to go become an investment banker, then that would probably be my answer. I'd probably say I wouldn't be an investment banker. I'm going to do comedy. That would be my answer to that question. I've been somebody who's kind of leaned into judgment or lent into judgment quite often in my life, such that the things that I get judged for now are the things that they're a bit more complicated. It's not as simple as stop judging me and then I'll do it. Because if that was the case, I would just do it.
Yeah. If you could change one thing right now, this second, in your career, what would you change?
I would change how people view Black people.
Ah, that's a good one to go on.
I would change how people view Black people, and I'd change, just generally how people view me. I find that it's weird that sometimes I have to explain and contextualize myself beyond recognition, just because the world isn't ready for different versions of what it is to be Black. And every so often I have this conversation with people and I'll be like, who's your target audience, Ola? And I'll be like, I don't really know. Who's my core audience? Who are they? I don't really know. I feel like I know them. I feel like I see them. They come out to the shows and so on. But there's no way to classify them. Because if you just say Black, most of what is, sort of accepted as Black entertainment in this country I'm not really the right fit for that platform.
Yeah. So
where do I go to even find them? I almost have to build the audience myself. Like if, let's say, my stuff was very, very focused on like grime music, drill music, and so on. And as a comedian, I would just go to the platforms where they play drill music and grime music and say, look, I'm a comedian. I'd like to host your show, or I'd like to, have a radio show on your radio station or whatever. But if, let's say, you like to discuss topics and you are a Christian and you went to private school and, a Russell Group University, and you like rap music and you love your Nigerian heritage and you like intellectual discussion and, just all those ones that don't quite neatly fit into a box as to maybe what you might expect a Black person to be. I'm like, where do you go for that? Who do you speak to about that? And I'm excited every time I see little pockets of it, but it's clearly not. I still feel like people are shocked at the idea that maybe Black people don't all want to be lumped together in the same category. Maybe we want to show a bit more nuance and a bit more of the idiosyncrasies of our own individual personalities, not for the sake of forsaking a Black identity or my African heritage or whatever. It's not to forsake it, it's to embrace it, but to embrace it with everything else. Because if you say Nigerian comedian, I don't present as what you expect when you see Nigerian comedian. You might expect them to speak in Pidgin or to be in Nigeria. When you say British comedian, I often also don't present as what you might expect, because you may be expecting, I don't know, Michael McIntyre or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, where is my place in this world? Where do I go in? And the truth is, I can go to many places and I can do well. I've performed in like 15 countries around the world.
Wow.
And that means I've clearly got the ability to do it, but I'm not going to have their hearts and minds. They can come out to an evening's entertainment, not know who I am, have a great time, enjoy my set, go home, tell somebody, I had a great time, this guy was really funny, and then forget about me for the rest of their lives. But the reason why, Michael McIntyre can become a household name is because he has a market for whom they look at him and he is their guy. He's their comedian.
Yeah.
So then I look at the landscape and go, well, who's going to ever do that for me? And I think one of the reasons why it's harder to find that is because the way people look at Black people is almost as though we're not fully capable of a wide range of expression, thoughts, and life outlooks. When I see a rich diversity of that all the time, but it's almost like we're constantly trying to recontextualize ourselves. I don't know if you've noticed this, but context is very important to me, and I mentioned it a lot. But it's because if let's say you wanted to have this conversation. We're both Black individuals having a conversation about all things to do with life, career, figuring stuff out and so on. It's almost like if we were to try and pitch this, for example, to a TV station, it's like, so they're going to have rap music at the beginning. Cool. Then we're going to need to have a really colorful background and graffiti sprayed on the wall. And then we're going to be like, yo, welcome to Us People Podcast. Welcome, people. I got my main man, Olawale here, and he's going to tell you all about the things about life and that. And blah, blah. And it's like, I don't have any problem with that. That's fantastic. That's great. But that's not the entirety of who we are.
That's putting us in a box and saying we're all the same.
Exactly. And so that's what I would change if I could, because that, I think, is one of the single biggest career factors I have, is that everybody is constantly trying to put me in a context that they understand, whether it's me or not. I can go to Estonia right now and perform, and that's great. That's fantastic that we can find ground that I can make you laugh on. But the truth is, when I was in Romania, for example, I went with my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. And we were just walking around near our hotel, and dude is shouting out 50 Cent at me and calling her Beyonce. Now, I don't look like 50 Cent. We're all clear on this. But he's trying to put me in a context of which he knows Black people. And hip-hop's done very well as a worldwide representative. And so people just kind of go, he's Black, he must be... And I do happen to, like some of 50 Cent's music, that's fine, but I should be able to just be me. I shouldn't have to be like, let me explain Ola to you. Okay, do you know 50 Cent? Yeah, just something like that. No, let's figure out who is Ola really. Yeah. Where is Ola different from 50 Cent? Where is Ola similar to 50 Cent? That's more of a textured conversation. That's the reason why if I say to you, what does a white person look like? You can give me 16 different white archetypes right now. I can give me the surfer dude. You can give me the surfer dude and the stoner dude. Those guys are very similar, but you can still differentiate between the two of them. You can give me the posh guy. You can give me the guy that goes and watches the football game every Saturday. You can give me all different archetypes of white man, but Black guy is literally like rapper / drug dealer.
And he's going to say
gangster. That. That's like one whole archetype, and then the other one is maybe, I don't know. There's maybe the old Black guy that serves.
But don't you find, Ola, that this is just ignorance with people?
It is ignorance. People know that there's way more to Black people than these things, but they're constantly reinforced. So, even by us sometimes.
But half of the time, I find that people take from our culture and expose it as if it's their culture.
Well, yeah, I mean, do you know, there's many aspects of our culture that's dope. And I think, by all means, of course you want to enjoy it. The food is tasty. The music bangs. We've got great stand-ups. We've got great actors. We've got great stories to tell, and so on and so forth. The only difference is in attitude. It's the attitude with which you do it. And unfortunately, if you've been raised in a world that teaches you that everything belongs to you, well, then you just believe that these people's culture belongs to you as well, and you can use it as you please and profit from it as you please. Most of us, if I spoke to most Black people and I said, I think you should just set up a yoga studio or, you know, a Tibetan restaurant. Like, I'm not even Tibetan. Like, that's mad disrespectful. Like, who am I to just believe I can just go set up a Tibetan restaurant? Yeah. Yoga now maybe is a bit more mainstream, so everyone feels like they can. But the only reason why it's mainstream is because white people decided, yeah, I can teach people yoga as well. So it's an attitude that says, yeah, their culture's up for grabs. Why not? And the problem with that is partly just to do with the way, you know, power works in the world and wealth works in the world. But also I think sometimes we don't even fully appreciate what we have until someone else wants it. So I think we can have great things staring us in the face and we undervalue it because it's so common to us. We go into black businesses and tell people their products should be cheaper. And then we're surprised when, you know, white people go and sell the same product for much more to somebody else who's going to value that thing. The way I see it is, look, I understand why people want discounts and, you know, so on, but I think it's a mentality we need to get out of constantly seeing what we have as being cheap and local and constantly available. We have a range. We have cheap. We have upmarket, and it's starting to happen now. We're starting to see people across the range, but we also need mid-range as well. We need to have a full understanding of markets and, you know, business landscapes and spectrums and so on. So if it's not just like you can only be luxury or budget, sometimes you need to be mid-range. Sometimes you need to just target the middle of the market. You know, sometimes you just need to like get into business for yourself, believe in your product, and go out there and sell it to the people because you believe in what you have. Yeah. You know, rather than do nothing with it, then someone else takes it, makes money from it, and you're like, hey, that was ours. Yeah, it was yours. But ideally, like, I don't want to just keep complaining about cultural appropriation. I want to be able to do something physically about it. So if, for example, white people start selling Afrocombs, for example, and anybody who could watch this on video, even if it's not on video, would know I have no need for an Afrocomb. But if I was in the market for an Afrocomb and white people started selling it, £15 each, I want to know, rather than sit here and complain, oh my goodness, they're appropriating our culture, blah, blah, blah. I just want to know, where's the black-owned Afrocomb manufacturer that I can just go to with my money and vote with my feet? And quite often, that alternative just isn't there, or they're running their business poorly in a way that I wouldn't even know. So I just want us to do better rather than always be concerned about people taking our culture. I think after a while, everyone can decide they're going to set up a Chinese shop right now. But the Chinese people run their culture because you know that if you want good Chinese food, you go to Chinese people. Yes. So I want us to have that same level of excellence with what we own and what we provide. I want us to own hip-hop. I want us to stop selling it for short-term payouts. I want us to own it because we created it. I want us to own Afrobeats. I want us to own our movies and our content that we create, and, you know, even maybe one day the platforms in which we distribute them on. And I want us to own our natural resources, and I want us to own our hair products and the shops that sell them, and so on and so forth. Rather than just complain that other people are owning it, I want us to actually own it.
I like that. I like that you're so passionate about what you say too, which means a lot to you. Here's one for you. What movie title best describes your life?
Movie title. Best describes my life. I was tempted to say Black Panther, but that's too obvious and not wholly accurate. That's one of those ones I would have loved to prepare ahead of time. I would have loved to prepare that one ahead of time. Let me even just look at the movies that I have and see if any of them. Nah, I'm not sure there is.
He turned into a tiger.
I mean, like, for example, when it comes to my love life or romantic life, I might say, for example, Brown Sugar is
That's a good one.
representative of it, because in the movie he ends up with his best friend, and that's similar to my own life story. But as a title, I wouldn't say my life is Brown Sugar. Come on now, that's a bit ridiculous. I wouldn't say my life is Get Out.
Oh wow.
But in terms of title, I really don't know. I don't know if I can narrow my life down to one title.
You know what we can do, right? We can, before the podcast comes out and I do your write-up,
Yeah.
we'll contact each other even before then, just to keep in touch.
That's
and
fantastic.
when you have something that you think is tangible and you're like, Savia, I have this.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm going to write it down in the write-up and say, I found what Ola's title is.
Okay.
And we could put it in there, okay?
Yeah. I like that.
Okay, right. We got that one. So the next one I have for you is, if you had an unlimited amount of money, so no matter how much you spent, you always earned 10 times more. Okay. Now your bank account is big. Yeah. What would you do in the comedy industry? Yeah. And in the education industry that you feel would benefit it?
First things first, you can't be asking me these kind of questions and expect me to go back to my regular life after all of this. You want me to just be dreaming and tasting of the goodness and then just go back?
You have to taste it before you have it.
Facts. Okay. In the comedy industry, first thing I would do, and this is a pet project of mine, is I would like to plug the Nigerian comedy industry into the rest of the world. Now, I think, Nigeria has the opportunity to become a huge entertainment hub. Nollywood is already huge. Afrobeats is taking over in many ways, and it's becoming very, very popular. But the stand-ups, and it's a unique thing about stand-up, is that it kind of needs you to be able to connect with an understanding of the person you're listening to be able to understand why what they're saying is funny. Now, a lot of the stand-ups have prepared themselves and excelled very well for local markets, but I would like to see it go international. I would like to see these comics be able to tour the world, because talent-wise, a lot of them have hugely funny bones. The context in which they are, though, I feel like keeps them limited. So every so often now, I've been a couple of times, and I've specifically gone with this mission in mind of understanding where I can slot into that Nigerian market and understand what part I can play. And in the course of doing that, I've seen a new generation of comedians who want to dream a bit bigger and reach a bit further. And the first thing I would do is work with them and develop them and give them reach and platforms so that they can bring their story around the world and open up Nigerian comedy. I feel like Nigerian comedy, like when you go to another country, you need to get the converter for your plug. Yeah. I feel like for Nigerian comedy to work everywhere else, they need an adapter plug. And I feel like I'm the adapter plug. I feel like I'm the one who understands how the international comedy market works from all the places I've been to and performed. And I understand how Nigerian comedy works based on my heritage and, having gone there and, watched the comedy and been a student of the game. So being able to make that link is a very unique position. You have to look at your skill set, your life experience. And I feel like mine suits that. So that's what I would do in the entertainment industry. In the educational industry, I think what I would do is, and this is something that kind of bubbles underneath the current for me, is that I would like to give or see children who haven't had a chance to go to private school obtain some of the benefits I received from going to private school. Now, I believe there are many benefits to going to private schools, and some of it is you can't get around. It's just resources. When your school has the money and it's run very well, you just can't beat it. Like if you go to a school, like let's say it's a state-funded school, and you have to go to the local leisure center for swimming lessons. you're never going to have the same opportunities as somebody who attends a school that has its own swimming pool. Just simple things like, developing the talent of swimmers, or even doing water polo, diving. These are all things that my school did. My school had a diving club. My school had a water polo team, and people left my school to join Team GB's water polo team. That only could happen because they had access to really benefit their gift, right?
Yeah.
So obviously I'd like resources to be more available, but that's a bit tougher. But one of the things that I think private school really did for me was to give me a mentality that works for the world, which is to see things as within your grasp. I feel like a lot of my friends who didn't go to private schools had their ambitions sort of chopped at quite early on, because what they were shown as their trajectory was a lot more limited. Whereas when you go to a private school, just because of the way the world works and because elitism is kind of buried into how this country works, you do start to believe that you can be great one day. And what I often find is that those who believe they're going to be great often find their way into greatness. And those who believe there's no chance of them being great tend to be right as well. So I think I would like to be able to give some of those aspects to people who haven't had, the money or the funding to go to those private schools, maybe to just have a bit of that mindset, to have, some of the, like even the articulation coaching that I'm doing now, that, even if you haven't been to a private school, there's no reason why you can't be well-spoken or confident in how you present yourself. I think taking some of those elements and giving it across the board would probably be how I would change the educational sector.
See, I like that. You made me speechless for a second because I was thinking about it. He's like, yes, I done it. Yay. Here's another one for you. So define what success means to you. This is possibly my favorite question to ask everyone, and I always say this. Define what success means to you as an individual, because we all define success in different ways. But what does it mean to you to be successful?
I think my ready-made sort of fresh out the oven answer is to live a life that essentially pleases God. If God looks back at me and says, this guy was not a waste of space, his guy was a good use of my investment, my time, my love, the gifts I gave him, he used them well, the wife and children I gave him, he looked after them, the body I gave him, he looked after it, that's my ready-made oven answer. In terms of my day-to-day working answer to that question, what does success look like? To me, it looks like prevailing against the odds. It looks like understanding how many things are set up to stop you from getting where you need to go, and yet still overcoming them. So for me, for example, success in terms of me looking after my body would look like me going, look, I know it's cheaper for me to go and buy KFC right now, but I still went to go and buy something that was better for my body.
Yes.
And that's the reason I haven't had success in this area. That's the reason why I'm still struggling. It's still theory right now, but the whistle hasn't blown. Just watch. Let's do this. By the time this podcast goes out, everyone's going to go and Google me, and they're going to see a picture of me with my top off. They're going to be like, this guy doesn't look like someone that needs to work out, because by that time, I am going to have this all under control. That's a lie. I'm not. But the point is still stands. This is what success looks like for me. It's when I do finally get to the point of going, look, even if there's racism in this world, in spite of it, I'm still going to succeed. Even if, there's every reason to be a terrible husband, or, there's all these temptations maybe to look elsewhere, let my eye wander. Even in spite of that, I'm still going to be a faithful and loving husband. Or even if there's every reason to be distracted and not be an attentive father to my daughter, even in spite of that, I'm still going to make sure I do that. So it's understanding where the challenges are and still overcoming them and not being defeated by them.
See? What advice would you give to your fans and followers, because we all have them, even if they're undercover? It's true. About being positive, having a good mind, a good heart, a pure heart, and believing in yourself for what is intended for you. Because we all go through struggles in life. What advice would you give them to tell them to keep going?
For them to believe in themselves, to be positive, maintain a good heart. Do you know what? I think the first thing I would say to them is to be honest. To be honest with yourself.
I like that.
I don't think positivity comes from being delusional. I don't think any long-lasting positivity comes from being delusional.
That's true.
I think you need to be honest with yourself. Where are your weaknesses? Where do you do well? It's not time to be fake humble, and it's not time to put yourself down. And at the same time, it's not time to have, delusions of grandeur. This is the time to be honest with yourself and say, look, where do I do well? Where do I struggle? What are the negative aspects of my life? How can I be positive in spite of these negatives? How can I turn some of these negatives into positives? I think it starts off with a real honesty and a self-awareness. And, I think, I know not everybody has the same faith as me, but I think everyone can find some comfort and solace in the scripture that says, where God says that my plans for you are of good and not of evil.
Yeah.
Just to understand that ultimately God has a good plan for your life. And if you would so much as take the journey to just roll with him, just be like, look, okay, cool, I understand. I didn't make myself. So I want to get with the person who did and just understand, like, why am I here? What was all of this about, and so on. If you just do that, then no matter what happens along the way, it's all part of a good plan for your life. I think that's the most encouraging thing, because then you recontextualize everything that you get into. If you get into, for example, a time of being broke, you don't see that as an attack on your identity or your life story. You see it more as, part of a wider story of where God is taking you and what's going to happen in your life. And I think that's probably way more powerful than, learning to just have PMA, do a positive mental attitude, and to just visualize things and so on. Because if I tell you to do vision board, for example, and you put a car up there and 6 years goes by and you don't have that car, you will, the Bible says that, hope deferred makes the heart sick. So if you keep putting hope into something and it doesn't happen, you will just get increasingly sick. But if you don't have the car right now, but you learn to see that as part of the journey towards getting where you need to be and the level of you attaining your goals and so on, then you don't spend your whole time waiting for this time you're going to enjoy yourself. You actually start enjoying it from now because you understand that it's all part of it.
Yes.
It's like, if you understand that, like, pregnancy needs to be about 9 months, 9 to 10 months, and then the baby's going to be here. You don't just spend the whole time going, oh my goodness, I can't wait till the baby comes here. You just learn to celebrate every part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe you learn to take the pictures along the way, learn to, get in the belly rubs and feel it kick in when it starts kicking, get the scan, enjoy all the different steps along the way, and don't just zoom past them because you're like, can't wait till the baby comes. In the same way, extrapolate that into your life. If you understand that, look, the current heartache you're going through right now, the breakup you just had, is on the way to you having a healthy, stable relationship one day, then you go, do you know what? I thank God I'm not with this person anymore, because it means that if his plan for me is of good, then it must mean that the person I'm going to be with is even better. So why would I sell myself short in this situation just because it's what I know or what seems most comfortable? And maybe even think back to all the times where you really wanted something that you couldn't stand right now. Think back to the times where you're like, I definitely want to marry this person. And then like 6 years down the line, you're like, don't even mention that person's name around me. Every single time that happens, it's a reminder that you really don't know. The Bible says that God sees the end from the beginning. He said that there's a way that seems good to a man, but the end of it is destruction. There's so many times in which we think we want something, but just because we don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't advocate too much for just like set your goals, strive, work hard, you'll achieve. I'm like, you do need to definitely do your part. You need to work. You need to set goals. You need to strive. You need to achieve. But the most important thing is to have a good context for all of these things. Understand that you setting the goals is not some kind of magic. It's not like you set the goals and then just, you pin it up on a board and then it just appears. All of that stuff, I'm not really down with it. What I do know, though, is that if God has a plan for your life, everything is important. Everything is valuable. Every person you meet is valuable. Every experience you have is valuable. Whether it's for learning to never do this again, there's still value in that.
Wow. And on that educational note, I get all this smiling. It's true though. On that educational note, Ola, finally, tell us where we can find you on all your social medias, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram.
Ola the Comedian on everything, apart from LinkedIn. But you don't really need to be adding me on LinkedIn. Just hit me up on... Only Savia could hit me up on LinkedIn. I have never had a request for a podcast on LinkedIn before. But you're a unique individual. But I leave the LinkedIn for the people that need to see a specific set of things before they can trust you. For everyone else who's normal and reasonable as an individual, hit me up on Instagram.
So are you saying I'm not? What are you trying to say? I'm not.
No, I'm saying normal? I'm surprised you used it because my LinkedIn is really just for like in my previous job, I used it for the sales and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not going to use my comedian page or whatever.
Remember what you said to me about seeing something different in people?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did.
Well done. Well done. I like it. I don't. But I was genuinely surprised. I was like, I was not expecting this kind of request on LinkedIn, but it's cool. But I mean, on the whole, I tend to give people the sort of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter stuff, which is all Ola the Comedian, by the way, OLATHE Comedian. And yeah, that's the best way to. And my website is olathecomedian.com. So yeah, that's the easy way to do it.
So guys, support Ola.
Yeah, and if you like my stuff, and you want to support it, you can also jump on my Patreon and become a patron today.
Hey, what? See what I mean, guys? I like the way he's selling it there. Ola, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Us People podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, that's perfect. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Us People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also donate to the Us People podcast by simply going on the Savia Rocks website or just typing in paypal.me/Us People podcast. Thank you for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another.
Peace of mind, gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. I protect my energy and peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. Peace of mind, peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. I protect my energy and peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. Peace of mind, peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. I protect my energy and peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. Peace of mind, peace of mind.
So in terms of advice, I would say there's no singular one best bit of advice. I would say there's advice for each season of your life. And depending on the season of your life, something's going to hit hard with you if you seek out the wisdom.
Manifest into a fear inside of us, learning to believe in our ability to shine through the darkest moments and tunnels when we cannot see the light. Patience being our light for forgiveness and strength to believe in our destiny. If you want real peace of mind, one needs to stop fighting their inner thoughts and embrace them with love, because love is the most amazing and beautiful strength that we have to conquer our peace of mind. Make your thoughts impact a nation by keeping them true and honest, especially to yourself, but make your peace of mind protect you when you don't have strength to embrace anything else. Find your peace of mind by listening to your heart.
Cool. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. You happy with the intro?
Yeah.
Because that's gonna be the first thing that people hear before you do your podcast. So.
What, that me just saying that just now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. That's a lot of pressure. Now you got me thinking about it. I just thought it's one of those things that you know, like a radio stations where they just play it in the midst of all these different noises. You're like, hi, my name's Ola, and you're listening to Savia Rocks, like that kind of thing. I didn't know it was gonna be the whole opener. Golly. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind, peace of mind, peace of mind.